Rutenberg is next. Benet Rutenberg resides in Terre Haute, Indiana. He's the father of three, the grandfather of three. He has worked in places including logistics, sales, management, and food service. He's been a student of the Urantia Book since 1971. He's been actively involved in many Urantia Book related organizations. He's a member of Urantia Association since 1996. He's served on the Leadership Symposium in 2011 and the Strategic Planning Committee since its inception. He served for 2 terms as the president of GLMUA, the Greater Lakes Michigan Urantia Association. Well, I could tell you everything about everything he's done. He's been doing everything for a long, long time, including 2 terms as the president of the United States Urantia Association. He is currently one of the trustees of Urantia University and has been since its inception. Everyone, my longtime friend, Benet Rutenberg.
Thank you very much. And I don't know which is more daunting, being broadcast out on the air or that this is going to live forever. And I want to thank Tim for an excellent presentation coming before. He was going all over a path that I frequently tread and a very favored subject. And Chris and whoever else is a co-host here, I'm on my phone because my computer is antisocial. It refuses to stay connected, so I will not be able to do some of the functions that most folks do here. So I'll need help in terms of keeping track when we go to folks talking, because this is meant to be about barely 1/3 me and 2/3 open discussion. Please keep your thoughts concise so that as many folks as possible can speak to this. Okay. God is no respecter of persons. How do we understand this today? I want to thank each of you for joining us tonight. This will be an open discussion in a few minutes. Over the few years I studied the Bible before discovering the Urantia book, I often considered the meaning of these terms and probably assumed that I knew what they meant. Today I look at it with a bit more circumspection and realize that there is much to learn, even though most of us have grown in our understanding comprehension of this phrase. So I will briefly answer the 2 questions that will be asked of you tonight. I'm not going to tell you what they are yet. In my earliest concept of this statement, the presumption was that God was above all and not willing to consider those living far below his eternal grandeur. We were asked to obey his commandments and laws without question. His glory was so great that we could not approach him, and anything more than blind faith, while the whole idea of eternal life was shrouded in some mystery of how we might serve and how we might survive. Kind of primitive in some respects, even though some of it's still true. As I began to read and study our Revelation, spiritual growth was taking place in ways that I did not yet understand. And while I, and probably many of you, took many years to grow in our understanding and knowledge of these teachings, the idea of God not respecting persons stayed as it was in my mind. Little pieces were added along the way. I saw it more as God does not respect people's grandiose self-image, their ego trips, their office or station in whatever society they lived in. Today, I would include self-assertion, self-importance, moral superiority, and all forms of selfishness and greed, and all religious attitudes that presume to judge or discredit any other religion as inferior and of no value, with perhaps the need to prescribe death to any outside the chosen few. Outside of prayer, meditation, and worship, it is exceedingly rare that we are conscious of receiving the ongoing gifts of God. Why? If we are truly sincere, we are engaged in the communion through which the gift comes. We are with God, in God, and God is in us. In that moment, we are of God. After, as we may be realizing what we have experienced and accepting or receiving or comprehending, we may then reflect about God. If we fall back from our superconscious experience, we quieted ourselves long enough to get up there in the superconscious. If we fall back from that experience of our communion by enjoying the ego trip of gift getting, we in effect hang up on God. God loves us. God trusts us. God respects the true sons and daughters that we are. Yet God is no respecter of persons, offices, status. In our version of our lives, our self-importance, our lower, purely material and selfish selves, and forgive me for saying that wrong. I'll just continue. How could Michael and our Father place such a high value on us and not respect us? How could God bestow infinite love and not respect us? Do we truly love people we don't respect? God respects our value, our love for him, and our service for all, and our destiny. So the place in each person that describes the difference between what God might respect in this terminology and what he doesn't is tied to how the part of us that identifies with God versus whatever part of us may still identify with unreality. In the last 20 years or so, my consciousness and perception have grown into an understanding of how much God loves us and all the many ways we are served and supported by the agencies of God. And so the questions of how could God not respect us and yet do so much for us began to accrue in my mind. We have all heard testimony of those in our larger community and no doubt the larger world of the ways in which God looks out for us, cares for us, teaches us all that we may become the sons and daughters of God in eventual perfection and service across the universes and on to paradise. As all of this evolved in my heart, mind, and soul, it occurred to me one day that perhaps the word respect was not translated as well as it could have been. The expanding ramifications of what this could mean captured my attention on many occasions. Contemplation on the truths of how Jesus' faith in us is so inspiring, and how God first had faith and trust in us when he sent his adjusters to guide us back to him, led me quickly to consider that there must be so much more to know. So we will go for the definition of respect, a few quotes from the Urantia book, and perhaps an insight from another source. From Merriam-Webster's, the first definition of respect is a relation or a reference to a particular thing or situation. And for instance, remarks having respect to an earlier plan. 2, an act of giving particular attention, consideration. 3a, high or special regard, esteem. I don't know how much God esteems us, but he may at times esteem the work each one of us chooses to do. It's also the quality or state of being esteemed. C is respects, expressions of high or special regard or deference. We paid our respects. And in particular detail, a good plan in some respects. So we can see that most of these meanings have little to do with the topic we have, but consideration and esteem certainly may weigh in there. A few quotes from paper 1. God is no respecter of persons, either spiritual or material. Paper 112. Personality is unique, absolutely unique. It is unique in time and space. It is unique in eternity and on paradise. It is unique when bestowed. There are no duplicates. It is unique during every moment of existence. It is unique in relation to God. He is no respecter of persons, but neither does he add them together, for they are non-addable. They are sociable, but non-totalable. Paper 137. And this kingdom shall include the worshiping souls of Jew and Gentile, rich and poor, free and bond. For my Father is no respecter of persons. His love and his mercy are over all. Do you not comprehend, paper 148, do you not comprehend that God dwells within you, that he has become what you are, that he may make you what he is? And Jesus at the Last Supper, paper 179, do you not know that there can be no place of preferment at my table? Do you not understand that I love each of you as I do the others? Most of that sounds pretty respectful to me. Can we see the love and the perfect fairness of God? Jesus tells us over and over that we stand equal before the Father. We know this and that it cannot be otherwise. And this last little bit, with courtesy from the Apologetics Press. Anyone who obeys God's commands can be justified in his sight. Consider a sampling of passages that emphasize God's fairness towards all humans. I'm only including one from 2nd Chronicles. Now therefore, let the fear of the Lord be upon you. Take care and do it, for there is no iniquity with the Lord our God, no partiality nor taking of bribes. Exactly what does it mean that God is impartial? God offers salvation to every man, no matter what external circumstances, such as socioeconomic status or nationality, might apply to him. God does not offer salvation only to the Jew just because he is a Jew, or to the Gentile because he is a Gentile. The Greek word translated respecter of persons in the King James Version of Acts 10:34, God is no respecter of persons, is prosopolemptes. I'm certain that's not quite how you say it. A word that refers to a judge who looks at a man's face instead of at the facts of the case and makes a decision based on whether or not he likes the man. Under Roman law, for example, a defendant's societal status was weighed heavily along with evidence. Any human judge might show undue favor to a plaintiff or a defendant because of private friendship, bribery, rank, power, or political affiliation. But God, the perfect judge, cannot be tempted by any of the things that might tempt a human judge to show unfair partiality. So what's in the definition? It is clear here, and moreover in our revelation, that our Father treats each person as family and with fairness. It is true, he will abundantly pardon. So the questions for open discussion here. 1, briefly describe how you understood God being no respecter of persons from your earlier concepts. How did you used to think about it? And 2, how do you understand this statement today? And you don't have to consider anything that I've just said. Just your ideas. We're open for conversation here.
I'll start, if that's okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'll say, I agree with you, Bennett. God is no respecter of persons. The sonship is one, unity. There's no other in us. We are all thoughts of God. A unity of the sonship of personality. And we can, with the sovereignty of free will, we can choose to accept that reality or not. Our bodies are physical energy, very finely balanced chemical energy mechanisms. Anyone who has studied physiology and anatomy knows this. They're learning devices. They age, they die, they're subject to disease, death, but that's not who we are. That's not our true reality. There is no other. The Father, our Creator, sees only that which He created, our perfect personality. He forgives us our mistakes, our wrong paths. The only way we can truly access that forgiveness and grow our souls is to forgive others. God only gives, He never takes. And so to realize that you are loved, you have to give love. To realize you are forgiven, you give forgiveness. To know courage, you give courage. The intangibles have to be given to know you have them. There is no other.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. Who do we have next, please? A quiet meditative group.
Oh, okay, I'll take it. Okay. Bennett, okay.
Hang on a second. We had a hand up that came up electronically. David Ryman and then Bob, please.
Yes. When we talk about respecter of persons, probably one of the areas in the Urantia book that gives me chill bumps is the story of James and Judas, the two apostles, the brothers that were simple individuals. And I know other apostles came to Jesus and said, Jesus, why do you keep these in your inner circle? These two individuals have limited understanding of what you're saying. And Jesus' response is that I'm going to make them a head of security. I'm going to make them the head ushers, because I want the people that come to hear us know that everyone is welcome. And it even says there on page 1564 that Jesus was no respecter of persons. He wanted everyone to know that everyone was welcome to come to him and hear his message of the kingdom of God. And when he told those apostles of why they were going to be the ushers and out there in front of the people, so the people would understand that, it really does give me chill bumps. And to think then that our holy God, our ultimate Father, feels the same way. What I'm trying to do now is practice that and quit being judgmental with my brothers and sisters in this society, because unfortunately I'm too quick to be judgmental. having been a judge for 38 years, you become judgmental. And I'm trying to eliminate that aspect and really embrace a little bit more of the message of Jesus. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've got Bob and then Dana, please.
Okay. Well, I first discovered the Urantia book in 1980. My first reading 40 years ago, when I came across that statement, God is a respecter of no person, that really upset me till I had to think about it a little bit. I knew God loved us. It said so many places all over the book. So I thought, I'm wrong. It must mean that he doesn't show any preference, any prejudice or favoritism to anybody, that he treats everybody the same way. And that's the way I look at it today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I wish I would have seen that a lot sooner. That's all I can tell you. Thank you, Bob. Dana and then Jetta, please, after.
Yeah, the way Bob put it is spot on, I think. When I grew up in the Lutheran tradition, and when I first, read that, I just thought it was nonsense. I mean, it didn't make any sense to me. And so I did strike a relationship with it. I didn't ignore it. I thought, well, that's just gobbledygook. And my understanding now is just the way Bob put it. I appreciate you looking at the words, Bennett. I wrote down partiality. I think that is one of the definitional words that applies. God is not partial to me or you, meaning he doesn't make any adjustment in his orientation to reality because of me. He treats me the way he treats everyone else, and he exists and designs the universe for the good of the whole, not the good of the part. You get that partiality back in there. It's not for any person or any group of persons, not even all the persons in the universe minus one. He's still not partial to that group. He is God to the whole. And it does make sense to me now, and I like it. I am just one of the parts that he strikes his relationship, to the whole in his being and decision making. So I said it longer than Bob did, but he said it better.
Well, thank you. And yeah, in complete agreement. You also stimulated reference to in the Supreme Papers when it talks about providence. It's not the importance of an individual as a person, it's the importance of their function in any given project that's needing to be done in the universe. And it so remains. So lest we get self-important, there's that. Okay, we got Jetta next, and then after her, Katerina, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jetta, and I love that God is no respecter of person. We all have a part of God within us, the indwelling adjuster. So with that, we're all equal in that regard. But when we're in the human existence and a material existence, we are, I guess you would say, limited, so to speak. So we are going to make mistakes. We are going to not have as much spirituality as we need because we're growing. And so with that said, God has mercy on us. He has compassion for us because he knows that we're growing. He knows that we are on a journey to evolve and to grow. And so we here on this planet, Urantia, we need to have that same attitude towards each other. We need to say, if someone's, maybe not as intelligent or not as polished or whatever you want to call it, we need to look at that person and say, you know what, they're growing, they're on a journey. I'm grateful that I've grown from that stage, where I'm at now, but they are on a journey, and in the end of the journey, we're all going to be one. So it's just having that patience for one another and understanding. It's hard, especially when we have all these issues but when we keep that mentally in our mind that, we're all going to eventually get to that point. If we choose God, we have to choose, there is a choice, as everyone said tonight. That's all I want to say.
That's just great. And the person in front of us gives us a hand and pulls us forward, and we reach back and get the next one in line.
Yes.
And that's what's supposed to happen.
Absolutely. And
Excellent.
patience, just it's hard, but Jesus has patience with all of us, each and every one of us.
The patience, and I think he had a lot better sense of humor than we always get to see. But in respect to that, it's like if life were easy, we'd be done already.
Absolutely.
So I think Katerina was next, and I'm not sure who after that.
Hi, I'm Katarina. And when you ask, how did we first understand God is no respecter of person? What it was for me was that it had nothing to do with mine or anyone else's presentation selves, but with our authentic inner beingness. And what that has helped me do is not to put anyone on a pedestal and not anybody down below me, but it allowed me an eye-to-eye approach with everyone that I met or meet still. And because they are not what they just present, they are so much more. And when I can relate from my authentic self, I connect with the other person's authentic self, with their divine spark within themselves. So for me, no respecter of person means I see eye to eye, no matter who the other person is. Thank you.
And we're reminded in the later ceremonies of the Last Supper evening that we should seek to communicate with the spirit that's inside of each of our friends as much as to communicate directly with them. Okay. Chris or Antonio, did you have anybody yet?
Ranji's up next.
Ranji, please.
Yes, when we say God is not respecter of persons, we have to look at our contemporary society. What happens is that in life, when you go think about social norms, military norms, church norms, religious norms, they create hierarchy. They create hierarchy to command respect. I love and respect my dad, but he's not commanding my respect. Because of the love, I respect him. In my life, I have seen people talks big about Jesus, big about his kingdom, but when I compare them with what our epochal revelation is, I'll think, my God, this guy is having the biggest hierarchical position, but he's not touching the realities of the kingdom. At the same time, I have seen people really illiterate. They have never had schooling, but the insight what they have surprised me. So I have seen God do not need your degrees. God do not need your positions in the society. So he don't respect any of the physical stuff. What he sees is what you are inside. So that is what I think is not a respecter of person. That gives me so much happiness that it is not the people in the lower the hierarchy is going to sitting with the end of the days. We all have a chance because we will be there with him. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranji. And you remind me also when it talks about God looking at all of us down on these many worlds around the universe, that he reckons us as having fulfilled all of our journey and eventually standing at the doors to paradise. He sees that all in our lives right now. Okay. Who's next, please? I'm not going to have to start calling on people, am I? Jeanette?
I think that this also needs to be thought of in the context of the historical times in which it was said, because the common people of that era were taught that they owed respect to certain classes. And I think it would have been a huge revelation to them to be told that they don't have to respect the Pharisees or the Sadducees or the Roman governor. So I think there's a historical context to this remark, as well as everything else that everyone else has been talking about.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Who else do we have, please?
Susan.
Oh, hi. Yes,
Susan,
I
please.
agree with Jeanette. But it also applies today. Like, think about the respect that people have for, you know, the church hierarchy. It's regardless of what they've done or who they are, they just respect them because of their position, not necessarily because their hearts are, you know, full and they really understand God and or have a good relationship with God. Then on the other hand, there's all the religions that we may not agree with everything about, and we may think that they're way off in what they think or how they behave as far as their religion is concerned. But each one of them has a thought adjuster, you know, and I always think of that rather than the peripheral things in regard to their religion.
Thank you. It's good to remember that we're all children of God.
Yeah, we are.
Who would like to offer some thoughts, please? It's simply wonderful to see people from all around the world sitting right here next to each other without face masks. John, did you have your hand up or are you typing? No, he's laughing now. Okay.
I was typing. I was trying to respond to the gentleman that wanted to know if there was a 533 study group, and so I was typing.
I see. You can raise a hand on the screen, or you can do it electronically, depending on what kind of device you're on.
Alice Wood.
I've got a comment.
Please.
You know, I think it's interesting to think about the context of the time when it was said, Jesus's day, and the context of when it is resaid today. And in what ways do we as humans kind of gauge people's, and inaccurately gauge people's value? And so often it, you know, has to do with status. It has to do with money. It has to do with things that don't actually have anything to do with just humanity. And so to really break it down to just looking at it from God's perspective, that God is no respecter of persons, that we all have that same access to God no matter who we are, is really an incredible thought and really life-changing when a person brings that into their life wholeheartedly. And I think also, you know, that act of bringing it into one's life wholeheartedly really requires action. Like, it's not something that you can just, you know, sit in. Like, it's great to sit in a Zoom room without face masks on and talk about it. But then when you actually go out into the world and you're faced with, like, we all have our internal biases that people talk about, just these, you know, sort of underlying biases that we have, that we are oftentimes aren't even aware that we have. And the more that we go out and into the world and interact with a variety of people, the more we can kind of punch through those biases and learn that people are surprising in good ways.
If we only take the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we've certainly been given more time in that respect these days, not that everybody fully appreciates it.
Mm-hmm. I know, you know, one way that I started to do that was through a church Bible study. I kind of went in there with certain biases or certain assumptions about people who attend Bible studies. And when I actually got to know them on a more deeper level, then my respect for them increased and they surprised me in a positive way. I'd be curious to know if anyone else has any experiences of getting to know someone better and finding that they do surprise you.
Yeah, there's no substitute for getting to know someone. Taking the few extra minutes if you have it. Yeah. Thank you, Alice. Okay.
Bennett, I can't put up an electronic hand, so I'm just putting up my physical hand here.
Yeah, I know you from somewhere.
I know you know me. The accent's a giveaway.
Yeah.
I haven't got an answer to Alice's question just now, but I was thinking before, it's interesting to note that in our society, you know, if you look right back over well, probably as we've become, probably in the last 2000 years, I guess, but what's remarkable is that even though individuals have varying aspects of understanding what it means to respect one another, in our society, our laws are actually almost divine in some ways, in that they do recognize the sovereignty of every individual. And in a sense, that's become, I don't know if that's sort of evolved from the Christian world, in, you know, valuing everybody's life because of the teachings of Jesus, but there certainly is something in being able to put a Christ-like figure over and above kings. You know, so at one stage, kings were the divine incarnation on earth, but then after Christ, Christianity recognized that Christ was above the kings. And so even though this is all, you know, Christian sort of medieval type of talk, it's an evolution of our society that has actually invented these laws where everybody is equal in the eyes of the law, including the king and queen. So I think that's a big step in the right direction.
Yes, it certainly is. Marjorie has her hand up, and then Diana.
Thank you, Bennett. I love this topic, and I'd love to hear what everybody's had to say. Alice, I do have a story for you, and so maybe this will help you. I'm very involved with the church that my parents founded, which is a Southern Baptist church. And so I deal with conservative religionists all the time. But one of the most profound experiences I ever had in this sort of arena was when I volunteered to go help Southern Baptist ministers, missionaries over in Thailand a few years ago. And it was an absolutely remarkable experience. I was actually teaching science in a hidden school for refugee children that were basically illegally in Thailand. They were mainly Pakistani Christians who had fled persecution in Pakistan. But one of the jobs, or I can't say it was a job, I have to say it was a total blessing, was actually going to the prison in Thailand. And Thai prisons are as awful as you can absolutely imagine. But people are doing remarkable soul building work there on both sides of the screen, because you're separated from the people you're trying to help by 6 feet and chicken wire and guards walking in between you. But the person that I had the greatest change about was the woman who was the Thai guard, prison guard, who had to accept your papers to allow you to go in and see the prisoners. You actually gave her your passport, which was a little scary. Anyway, she was very stern, and she was a beautiful young woman, but she was very stern and and the first time she like threw my papers back at me and she didn't like them, and and I was like offended, and then I took a step back and I said, no, I can't, my job is that I need to go help these people and I must do whatever it takes to do it. And so I decided that day after I left, I finally got in, my missionary friend helped me get in, but I decided when I went home that night, back to our house that night, that I was going to start praying for that woman every day, okay? And every day I would approach her to give my papers, and and I was reverential. You put your hands together and you say Swatika and you bow and all that. And so anyway, so this went on for like 6 months, 6 weeks, sorry, 6 weeks that we were going there 5 days a week. And I kept interacting with this woman on a daily basis. And I got to know the guards, and they actually did a really funny joke thing, which is an entirely different story the last day, because they knew that I was leaving. But when I approached her window for the last time, she normally sat behind her thing, and I went up and I put my hands together and I said, Swatika. And I said, my friend David was there, and I said, please tell her goodbye for me. And she got out of her chair and bowed to me and put her hands together and said Swatika, which is a reverential approach of another person. So, but it meant so much to me to understand that woman as, she was doing her job. She was not a mean person. I mean, she didn't hate those prisoners. She saw the women and the children that were there. There were times when I saw her walk back, you could see. And so I had a total change of perception of this woman. And this is when, we get that insight of that God is no respecter of person. We are all gifted with personality from the Father, and we're all gifted with the TA, and we all have those things, and those are our gifts from Him. And so he sees us totally as on the same par, as equals. So and for me, that was a real enlightening moment, and that brought that concept into such a birth of fruition that I had never really approached it before. So anyway, I hope that's a good story. You're welcome to use it, and there you go.
Well, it reminds me of that experience is the greatest teacher. So we've got Diana and then Tim Duffy, and that may be all we have time for, but let's please be succinct, and love to hear what you have to say. Diana?
Hi. Some of you know I've just been in prison for nearly 20 years, and I just got out. And I want to say that while I was there, I had many friends, of course, many lovely people, but also wandering around the yard all the time were a great many people who were really ugly, ugly in spirit and ugly in person. And it was an exercise, like regularly, to remind myself that God loves each and every one of them as much as he loves me. And I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much. And he does. Okay, Tim, please. And thanks again for your presentation earlier.
Oh, sure. You're very welcome. I enjoyed it. Well, I thought Diana's comment was very apropos, because I was just going to say too, I think the most important thing about this, which is a great topic, is that it doesn't just apply to people of power or success or the material trappings, but even to their spiritual development. So even the person who is the worst person we can imagine is entitled to that same respect, and that's from God, and he does have that from God. He or she does have that from God. And I also just wanted to comment on Kathleen's comment, which I think is she hit on something very important. That's one of my favorite topics. That the idea that we are all equal, that we have some of that in our laws now. It wasn't that way 2,000 years ago. If you'd have told the Romans every person is entitled to the same defense, or the same rights, they'd have laughed you out of the forum, right? Unless you were a Roman citizen. And what we have that now, at least in spirit, in most places of the world, if not in fact, and at least everyone admits it's true, even if they don't always follow it. And that really is a notion that came directly from Christianity and religion, and the notion of the soul and each person having value. And I don't think we appreciate that enough. It has nothing to say about whether we should be mixing politics and religion or anything like that, but we do owe, it's the religious tradition of that equality that ended up putting that eventually into our politics. Anyway, so I'll stop there.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you everybody who offered their comments, and especially all of you who were here tonight. I hope you will continue to stay with us and stay up as late as you can. You've got your mom's permission to stay up late tonight. So one closing thought based on many of the things that I heard, and that is putting this in perspective, this word respect that came out of the original legends, the original writings in mostly in Aramaic, I would assume, and then early translated into Greek. And the King James came from the Greek translation, as that one little snippet I read discussed. And that particular word was judges showing favor to people based on reasons other than the merits of their case. And if we look at that, we can say God does not prefer one person over another. God's love, the truth of God's love, and the knowledge of that is what really sets us free, because we were designed to be free and all equal spiritually before God. So with that, I will turn it back over to Chris and whoever else. And thank you all for taking your time with me tonight. And I'll look forward to sharing more time with you as this program moves on. Thank you.